CEO of the Walt Disney Company, Robert Iger, lost John Lasseter from Pixar to Apple. And now Pixar is falling apart. And Iger is out there hawking Apple products. He's going to Apple conference calls, telling people to buy Apple stuff. What in the world is going on? The company seems to be losing confidence rapidly in this transitory CEO. How long can Iger last? Can he even make it to the deadline when he's supposed to hand over power? Well, we've got Pixar people reaching out to us now, and they're ready to spill the beans on the CEO that they no longer trust. All right, folks, welcome back to another exciting video here on the WDW Pro channel. We are happy to bring you some more information as we attempt to explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve. Helping us do that today will be Jonas J. Campbell, investigative reporter for thatparkplace.com. Jonas, welcome back.
Hey, good to be here.
All right, Jonas, we are going to be talking about Bob Iger. He is in a whole bunch of hot water, and he does not seem to understand it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe the public face is different than the private face. But he certainly does not indicate publicly that he quite grasps just the trouble that his company is in. So Jonas, as we get ready to do this, I would just encourage folks out there, if you like content like it, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. All right, Jonas, we're going to start today with an article out of TechCrunch. This is big news. You, I believe, actually watched some of this.
Yes.
Disney Plus will be available on the Apple Vision Pro at launch. You know, I like the last part of their name. Good branding. Here's what the article says. At Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, the WWDC, today, Disney CEO Bob Iger announced that Disney Plus will be available on the tech giant's new Apple Vision Pro at launch. And it goes on to talk about this extremely expensive headset that combines virtual reality with augmented reality that Apple is going to bring out. I suppose that in this post-Steve Jobs era, they're going to attempt to be the forerunner when it comes to virtual reality, even though Meta, of course, has been pioneering this area with their Oculus Quest and all of those sorts of things. But here's what Iger had to say, and we'll talk about why I think this has something to do with the confidence being lost at the company. But Iger walks out on the stage and says, "We're so proud to yet again be partnering the greatest storytelling company in the world with the most innovative technology company in the world to bring you real-life magic," Iger said during the keynote. "These are just a few of the ways we can bring Disney into your world with Apple Vision Pro, and we're looking forward to sharing more in the coming months." Jonas, here's the critique that we're beginning to hear out of people. Some people say that this is not something that is going to be out in the market to a large degree, that the cost is prohibitive, and therefore the audience is small. And that at a time when the company, that being the Walt Disney Company, seems to be on fire in many different areas and has tickled in the last 2 weeks its 5-year low with its stock value, that Iger should not be focused necessarily on a little gadget that may or may not do anything in the market. What do you think, having watched this?
Well, I'd say you're absolutely correct. At a $3,500 price point, with phones costing about $1,000, I'm not sure that this obviously would work in the Apple ecosystem with an iPhone, but I'm not sure that you have to have a phone in order to have this on top of it, as you might with a PlayStation 5 and a PSVR 2. Sorry, not to get too into the weeds there on VR. I just don't see this as a great tool to sell a $10 a month streaming service. I haven't actually checked on the price there of Disney Plus, but if they're struggling to get consumers to say that their streaming service is worth it at $120 a year, getting someone to pay $3,500 for a unique experience, well, that's the kind of thing I would associate with, say, the Galactic Star Cruiser.
So let's talk about the unique experience then, Jonas. Essentially, Disney Plus, I suppose, could be unique in that you could pretend to be in a giant theater watching the movies that already exists on other virtual reality headsets.
Let me comment, because I know you haven't seen this. The presentation, I will say, is great. But that being said, I'm not sure it's $3,500 great. So while watching The Mandalorian, it can look like you're sitting in the cockpit of one of their ships with a landscape of Tatooine behind it. They showed this razzle dazzle image of a ESPN game of a basketball game. I'm presuming on ESPN, where you can move around and watch the entire court. I'm assuming that needs infrastructure to where they already have the cameras. They are doing a 3D image during the game. Maybe the NBA's got the money for that. Or also just watching things by yourself on a couch with a screen glued to your face like a zombie, as one does in a dystopian future.
So I have often thought about how, when it comes to sporting events, virtual reality really has an opportunity there. But as far as I know, they're not promoting an ESPN Plus situation. It's Disney Plus that they're talking about, right?
Right, but they did use sports content, and I think it was NBA content. So the implication there is that all of this may be together at one time. It was more of a tech demo kind of thing.
Well,
there's also the
this.
implication of having a virtual Mickey Mouse that was on a painting come to life and join in the room to make your children's imaginary characters into quote unquote something less imaginary.
So I've seen all of that before. None of that is special to me. I've seen the HoloLens from Microsoft. I've seen the Oculus Quest. I've seen Google Glasses. All of this has been suggested that it can come to fruition. So far, it hasn't. I know that one day it will. But here's my issue with this. And I think this is partly why people are losing confidence in Iger. They're spending all this time, money, and effort to put him there. If you look at the content that's on Disney Plus, really and truly, the only thing you can get out of this is that 3D movies and streaming could be available on this headset, because the content that exists cannot be turned into virtual reality other than just the 3D you go to see at theaters. The format was never made to be in virtual reality. For example, you can't watch the original Cinderella in anything other than a flat two-dimensional screen. And perhaps you can pretend to be in a theater, or perhaps it can pop out in your living room. But it's still going to be a two-dimensional plane with the movie showing. And for 99% of the content, that's the case. They could give you 3D movies, but only the movies that were shot in 3D or can be retrofitted in 3D. There's nothing that I know of that's been shot actually to be a virtual reality experience that exists on Disney Plus.
Agreed. And that eventually just becomes a video game, which is fine. But I don't think that Apple doesn't do a great job in the video game space. They've innovated some things, but they've never really found their niche within the video game industry. I don't think this is it.
So, Jonas, let's go to Yahoo Finance this time. This one, Disney's Little Mermaid, a test for company's film strategy amid recent struggles. And it is by Alexandra Canal. We have covered her stuff many times. But the key thing to look at in this entire article is what Bob Iger had to say about The Little Mermaid way back when he was talking at a major conference. Unfortunately, you and I discussed this before the video, there's not a transcript available. But we wish there was, because what he said speaks volumes to the fact that he is simply out of touch. Here's what has been the synopsis, we'll say, of his statement. Iger added at this conference, the company will be much more surgical about what we make, and that high-performing theatrical tentpoles like The Little Mermaid could serve as a catalyst for future subscriber growth. He said this is part of the maturation process. As we grow into a business that we had never been in, we're learning a lot more about it. Specifically, we're learning a lot more about how our content behaves on the service and what it is consumers want. Now, what he had said essentially, Jonas, because there's more to this. Unfortunately, we don't have the transcript. What he had said was that The Little Mermaid was going to demonstrate to investors that Disney still had the good stuff, that they could still put out a film and really generate a ton of money. Well, we know that that's a farce now. This movie, adjusted for inflation, makes less than the original animated film. And kudos to our writers at that Park Place. They discovered that in terms of theaters and screens, this Little Mermaid in the year 2023 has 7 times the number of screens that the animated movie did. Now, that took some serious research, but that's the case. 7 times the capacity, and adjusted for inflation, that means actual people who went to see the film, is significantly less. We know that based on the second weekend drop off. So, Jonas, it doesn't seem like Iger, though he's going to Apple and he's going on the big stage and he gets all the accolades and everybody's excited. It doesn't seem that when it comes to really what's going on at the company, that he's well connected to what is working and what is not.
This is a strategy that has worked in the past. What he's referring to is a handful of franchise films every year. The problem is, at this point, he's killed the engine that was producing all of those franchise films. And there's nothing coming out of Marvel Studios or Lucasfilm or Pixar or Disney Animation right now that looks like it can create that kind of energy in the box office. And Disney Plus seems to be working against that box office engine right now, because if someone says, well, I'm going to see this on Disney Plus and my kids are going to watch it 30 times on Disney Plus anyways, why would I pay $30, or in the case of a large family, more to go see it in theaters when you know that they're just going to watch it at home? And until then, they're just watching Comcast's Minions or Puss in Boots or whatever.
Exactly. Jonas, let's go now to the richest man in the world and what he says about what's going on with some of these companies. And I think this has also something to do with Iger and with Disney and with the potential dangers they face. Elon Musk from the New York Post by Ariel Zeiber. Yes, Ariel Zeiber says that Elon Musk predicts class action lawsuits against Target after company loses $15 billion. Now, he goes beyond this in the article. And what Elon Musk says in this article, I recommend people go read it. We're not going to read through it right now, simply because there's too many buzzwords that might get us in trouble. Folks, you figure that out on your own. But in this article, he essentially says that these companies that have went into divisive marketing, advertising, content, etc., that they are destroying the fiduciary responsibility they have to stockholders by dividing the consumers who might consume their products. Well, when we're talking about this, what did we find out from that Axios Harris poll just a few weeks ago? Disney has become the fifth most divisive, contentious company, the most polarizing company in the world, the fifth most. I think that Elon Musk is not just talking to Lasseter. I don't think he's just talking to alcoholic beverage companies. I think he's talking to the mouse as well. And I think that Iger put them there. What do you think?
I think that when you sign up to do an initial public offering, at that point, you're basically saying that your duty is to the shareholders of the company at that point. And anything else is alleged corporate malfeasance, if we're talking about any of these specific companies. If we're not talking about any of them, if we're just speaking generally, it's corporate malfeasance to do anything other than serve the shareholders. Now, you can do that by serving your employees and making sure that they're happy in their job, and serving your customers and making sure they want to come back. But primary duty is to the people who own the company.
Now, Jonas, to tie all of this together with what we previewed in the intro to this video, in the last 24 hours, we have had two people reach out to us regarding Pixar who they have connections with Pixar. One of those individuals we are negotiating with to try to bring their information manifested on this channel so that people can understand what's going on. Another source has just been forthright. They want to be kept anonymous. They don't want to appear in any form on this channel, but they're willing to give us some stuff to talk about. And the reason that all of this stuff leads up to it is because, well, let's just go into what they say. This source says, and this source is connected with Pixar, that source is saying that at Pixar, morale allegedly is as low as it has ever been. Now, you and I, number one, we can't independently verify what that would mean. We can't independently verify that it's true, and we can't get into the minds of every single one of Pixar's employees to make any kind of objective observation about that. That's just what they're saying, that the morale is very low. It's rumor, it's speculation, but that's what they say. And furthermore, they say that at Pixar, with some of these top-level executives being fired by Iger, by the company, that the way these Pixar employees feel is that, one, they were left destitute by all this content going to Disney Plus for so long during the pandemic. And then when they stuck their necks out for Iger, when it came to the Lightyear issue, where they went up against Chapek head to head, they were the only studio that went head to head against their own CEO. And these individuals that lost their jobs were involved in that allegedly. And now they're gone. And they feel as if Iger stabbed them in the back, that they carried the water for him. They did the task for him. And now they're the ones taking the whipping, let's say. And let me clarify too, Jonas, before you give your answer on this. Let me clarify. When I say that we're negotiating with individuals, there's no money involved at all. We're just trying to figure out the mechanism by which we can bring their information to the audience, let's say.
Right.
Okay, Jonas, your thoughts.
Yes. A little history for anyone who doesn't understand what is meant by carrying the water for Bob Iger. When Bob Iger joined the company, it was after a very contentious, quote unquote, Save Disney fight between Roy Disney and Michael Eisner, with ultimately resulting with Roy Disney leaving the board of the Walt Disney Company and Michael Eisner being replaced by Bob Iger. There are some theories about how that all went down, but one of Bob Iger's big wins after he became CEO was to negotiate with Steve Jobs and bring in Pixar as an official Disney company. And that is where you now get the Disney Pixar branding. Under one way to look at it, and there are two, and both have their merits, under one way to look at it, Pixar was brought into the Disney fold, and under the tutelage of Bob Iger and his restructuring, everything was done well and everyone is happy and the Disney company is doing great. Another way to look at it is that Pixar was bought as a talent hire for two people in particular, John Lasseter and Ed Catmull. And for those of you who are following me on any channels right now, you're probably getting tired of me saying these two names. But the intention here was to bring in John Lasseter, who was a former Disney employee at the time, who went to Pixar, built a great studio, was being groomed then at Walt Disney to be the next Walt Disney and become the chief creative officer of the company.
You know, Jonas, you have to be careful with that G word when talking about Disney. I don't know if you know that. Sorry. Kid. Go ahead. No, we're keeping it.
But if you look at most of the publicity that was coming out at the time, it was very obvious. They talked about that first computer generated film in the same way that they were talking about that first feature-length cell shade animated film with Snow White. And then something happened that John Lasseter fell out of favor, and then something happened that gave them an opportunity to get rid of him. Now, there is some contention about the reasoning for his firing, but either way, it eliminated the creative head of Walt Disney Animation and Pixar.
Jonas, is it odd at all that Iger is up there on stage promoting essentially an Apple product? And guess who owns John Lasseter now in terms of his products?
That is truly fascinating. One could speculate. Now, I don't think that Apple is going to buy Disney, but if more evidence presents itself, I might change that opinion. So don't say that I didn't say it'll ever happen.
It would be extraordinarily difficult for Apple to buy Disney, and not due to money, but due to a plethora of other issues.
But if Bob Iger were looking for a way to say, can you just save time in a bottle and let no one realize what all my mistakes were? Could you save everything that I purchased for way too much money, Daddy Tim, and please keep all of my legacy intact, and then everyone will blame you and maybe Bob Chapek for all of the problems that happened here?
Just give it back to Lasseter. Let him run the whole thing. That's what would happen if Apple bought Disney. It's not going to happen, but that's what would happen, is that Lasseter would essentially become the king again of animation.
Right.
And he may do it on his own period. I mean, once Skydance starts putting stuff out in theaters, Disney's in even more trouble than they already are in.
Yes. And the antitrust process would be a nightmare to have Disney be bought by Apple.
So, folks, there you have it. Iger out on stage hawking Apple products. Apple, of course, having Lasseter, who hugged too much at Pixar. At the same time, you've got Iger unable to identify which movies are going to be successful and which are not. And by the way, all of them are not right now. And then finally, you've got Elon Musk coming out and saying, it's lawsuit time. Now, we can't advocate for it, but Musk is out there saying it's lawsuit time for these companies that have pushed this divisive stuff and cost their shareholders money. Finally, the Pixar folks, they're mad, they're angry, they're demoralized, and confidence is being lost across the company. Jonas, final thoughts, and where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there?
My final thought is that Pixar deserves better, and I actually really loved Luca. It was great. Even though I saw it on streaming, I got it on 4K as soon as it was available. Beautiful movie.
Yeah, it's a good one.
You can find me on my channel or on thatparkplace.com, where I like to do investigative journalism. And oh my, it's like the floodgates have opened here. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff here on this channel and on That Park Place. And you're going to want to stay tuned. By the way, the Pro Show, 5 to 7 on Thursdays, you're going to want to check that out.
And not only that, Jonas, but this Saturday, if you're watching this video in the first week that it comes out, this Saturday, we are going to celebrate 20,000 subscribers to this channel in less than 6 months. Truly, we are honored and so appreciative of every single person who's decided to become a subscriber. 20,000 celebration this Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a fun, fun time. And thank you to everybody who's made that possible. We are overwhelmed with gratitude. We also want to clarify that as we've been talking about these topics, we have discussed individuals who were fired, terminated, let go from the Walt Disney Company. We take absolutely no joy in people losing their jobs, ever. That is not a fun thing, and we wish those individuals well. Finally, folks, the conversation here has ended. The conversation with all of you begins. Please drop a comment down below. We covet your comments. We love to read them. We respond when possible. So drop those down. And folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment explained, the culture curve conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.